I saw lots of players think Wolf is really weak. Well, this Wolf does not agree. And bossing are pretty simple, so we basically pop our buff, ice protection, and now he is basically out. So freeze, pump, and out. Basically that's it. Applying mark, freezing him, doing few shreds, and boom. It's 1,250,000 DPS right now, only for ice fragments, without considering lunar assault, lunar blessing. Yeah, that's the modifiers. Tier 15 map, monster level 80. I'm still in campaign gear, so I finally optimized my endgame version for this Ice Wolf, and he is completely broken. So let's run him up, so you kinda can see where it goes and what you will be able to do. The biggest problems for Wolf is mana management and speed of clearing, because to clear effectively, you want to activate your buff a lot of time. This Lunar Blessing buff, which gives us insane amount of DPS. But I managed to do it without cooldown, so we will be able to permanently run in this full form. We will be insanely fast, move extremely fast, and at the same time we're clearing screens, even off screen sometime. So as you can see, it's off and it's instantly on. It's just completely broken, it's insane amount of extra DPS, we are running fast and clearing maps extremely fast. That's basically what you want to do in the end game of Pass of Exile 2. Also, it's extremely easy to play. Our clearing right now is technically one button. If we wish, we can press extra buttons, and as you can see, there's no problems with mana at all. Yeah. We're running tier 15 maps, and yeah, I'm still in campaign gear. So actually, if you will like this style and you're going to play my build, there's crafting guide soon, where we will craft best talismans, and if you really want to see these best talismans, how to easily craft them extremely cheap, make sure to leave a comment, so I will try to get as much currency as possible and make this guide as soon as possible. Anyway, basically, if you're here only for the build, I will show it on the screen right now, and you can basically pause and screenshot it, because Path of Building still is not synergized with the latest update. But better not to just screenshot the build and try to copy, because Wolf, as you can see, does not agree. You need to understand few tricks how to make everything work, since there's little text and tricks how you can improve your power. So let's see our bossing, and bossing are pretty simple. So we basically pop our buffs, we freeze boss, hopefully soon. He got ice protection, and now he is basically out. Yeah, that's how we deal versus bosses at tier 15 maps. Okay, let's start with actual basic combination. What's going on? When you're playing Wolf, you will have Shred as your basic ability, and it will be only active if your talisman will have this werewolf form active, so you need to make sure you got your basic form as werewolf. It can be easily changed by pressing button, so it's pretty easy. Now, if you get questions why do I have two shreds, because I'm using shared weapon set, but I'm using one passive skill tree. I'm doing this only for one single reason, so everything works nicely. I want to be constantly in werewolf form. I don't want to go in and out in different occasions with some weird stuff in the build, so that's the first reason. And I'm using second shred just to test some abilities. I tested loads of support gems, so that's the reason. Now, your shred may not have all the support gems available to you like mine, because I'm level 90. And if you're just starting out, you can just go from left to right. They allocate it in importance order, from most important to least important. Actually, this last three is very important, but we need these two initially. So that's our basic ability. It does not use any mana, so you don't need mana, but this ability uses mana. It's Lunar Assault, and it's main ability for clearing. Our base idea and main combination for build is to freeze enemies by basically pressing the button. As you can see, one button will freeze enemy, and that's thanks for our passive skill tree mostly right now, but it will be improved later with gear. But even right now, if I hit him second time, he will shatter, so that's more than enough to clear. And that's why we're clearing with one button right now, not only because of this, but you need to understand that Shred, whenever you attack enemies, will create ice fragments, and ice fragments is separate ability. So if you check, there's separate calculations, and ice fragments will deal 4k damage on average per fragment. Now, hear me out. We can summon 5 ice fragments every hit, and 5 ice fragments is already 20k damage. So whenever I summon Frozen and I will attack him with basic ability, it will create ice fragments. Not a lot of people actually know how they look like, but that's how they look like. These little fragments is ice fragments, and just by hitting target once, they create it. If you look closely at these fragments, they will shatter right now and deal some damage. So idea is to basically create a lot of ice fragments and they will shatter and blow enemies up. If you're not very powerful yet, then you can do this combination when you're mapping. So basically attack, freeze, and then create ice fragments. But it takes so long for them to actually trigger. That's why we need cross slash. So cross slash is just jump, we're jumping and our character moving backwards, while at the same time there's two big slashes where we land. That's epicenter, and coolest part, if there's any ice fragments nearby, in the middle of these slashes, they will be pulled towards, so they will go into epicenter. So we can create ice fragments like over here, and then we can pull them, and they will trigger on our destination. That's really useful. Also we get pounce. Pounce can be used for movement, basically you just pounce and that's it. Also you will apply mark, but more on that later. And technically that's it. What we actually want to do, we want to improve our damage. We want to improve our clearing, and that's how clearing actually works, and why it works so good with this build. First of all, we need to take a look at our passive skill tree. So this is the most secret node that you want to use. Strikes will deal splash damage. Splash damage will have base radius of 1.5 meter. And this means basically Lunar Assault is already area of effect, melee and strike skill. So it already got some area of effect. But in this area it also will kinda create splash and deal extra damage to surrounding enemies, technically doubling our damage. Kind of. So our DPS right now in calculation is 18k, but that's for single target. Since we're splashing, we're technically dealing like 34k damage in area, considering there's multiple targets. And there's another complementary road. First of all, we can increase area of effect of attacks over here, but I decided to go with increased melee damage with hits at close range, and it's a really big one, and followed by primal growth. Increase area of effect if you killed recently, and that's again kinda increasing our area by a lot, and that's helps by a lot. So basically we're going in, we're killing one target, and we're good to go. We're already destroying them and starting to attack for wall screen. Of course, there's another complementary stuff for our clearing, and it's Herald of Ash and Herald of Ice combination. For Herald of Ash, it's basically magnified area, prolonged duration, so it kind of fries enemies for longer. It helps when we don't want to actually finish enemies, so we just pounce, attack and move forward, and they will be fried by Herald if needed. Something like this. So they are frying right now, and as you can see, they're being destroyed. And they're being destroyed not only by Herald and by frying, but also by a little bit of ice fragments. Because on Herald of Ice, I got Frozen Spite support gem. It creates ice fragments. It's least important one. Most important stuff is just elemental ornament, magnified area and elemental focus to deal more and more damage in more area. Herald of Ice basically triggers when you defeat frozen enemy. Herald of Ash triggers when you deal a lot more damage than needed, and that's basically how it works. So that's all cool, but to actually clear, especially like me in a campaign gear, again, this gear is just awful. We don't have a lot of extra damage on rings, we don't have any plus melee on amulet, so technically I don't have loads of damaging stuff. So how do we scale our damage? Answer is pretty simple. We need damage amplificators. One of them you already know, Lunar Blessing. First of all, it looks cool. It looks just completely awesome. You just cry and you become Frozen Wolf. What happens in reality? It instantly doubling your damage. But also at the same time, when you attack, it will create icy kinda storm around the place. It also helps clearing, so I attack once and as you can see, it's just complete apocalypse. The problem many players will have as Wolf is of course inability to use it constantly. So you kinda pop it, you use it for a few seconds and then pow, it's out. And cooldown on the skill is just devastating. Base cooldown time is 10 seconds. Oh my goodness, so how do we make this skill last forever, so you can basically go in with it forever? First of all, duration will be increased if you got rage. So we need kinda a way to generate rage. And here's the fun part. While it's triggered skill, its area of effect, it's called duration, shapeshift, werewolf attack, there is no spell skill. So technically this Moonbeam will take your attack damage, and whenever you attack enemies, it will attack enemies around you. And even though it looks like a big star, I mean, just look at this. This is like Moonbeam. It definitely looks like a big star from sky. But technically in the game it's melee damage. And while it's melee damage, you can check our rage. So I don't have rage generators basically, but whenever the stars hit enemies, you will see that we generate rage. And if you don't know, rage right now shown differently. So it's shown by our runes on our back, they will glow. And also there's a little meter over here for me in my interface. So I'm able to do it because I got a rage support gem inside. Basically whenever this attack hits, it hits and generates a rage, which is just completely insane. Then we got prolonged duration, of course, to make it last longer. At the same time, we got cooldown recovery to reduce cooldown. And it already gives you kind of ability to stay in this skill for a lot more. But to make it really unlimited, without any cooldown at all, you need second wind 3. Probably even second wind 2 will work. It does pretty cool stuff. It makes your skill able to use 2 cooldowns instead of 1. So normally when you use just first cooldown, look, kinda nothing happens. But when I use it, it again kinda stays. It stays. But whenever duration will be off, it will go on a cooldown. And they separate. So technically right now I can pop the skill again, and basically I staying in the buff again for longer. And when buff ends, there's like 2 seconds until I can pop it again. But that's because I used it second time without any rage. Normally when you're going on maps, you want to activate this stuff, you jump in, you start attacking, and you will generate rage. So when it's time for second use, well, that's basically when you use it second time, and it will last for 20 seconds on a full rage. 20 seconds is more than enough to activate it for second time, and that's basically how it works like. Pretty crazy, pretty powerful stuff, but that's not it. First of all, Bataille's Vengeance. If you don't have it, it's not a problem. There's another one. It's called Ice Bite. So whenever you freeze enemy with supported skill, you will gain damage as cold damage for 6 seconds. It's nice gem, but Bataille's Vengeance will give us buff for 20 seconds, which is a lot better, so I recommend getting this gem really. Coolest part, they actually stack. So technically you can freeze enemy with Lunar Assault, and then you can freeze enemy with Arctic Hole, and you get 2 buffs at the same time, but there's one more buff from Pounce. Whenever we pounce on enemy, instead of using basic mark from Pounce, which is completely useless for my playstyle, I'm inserting freezing mark. So freezing mark over here. By the way, if you don't know, to insert freezing mark, you need to create skill freezing mark and just drop it over here. It's skill gem, not support gem. First of all, it will give us ability to have more freeze build up on targets, which is already completely insane, because our freeze build up is through the roof, and I'm able to freeze bosses when they're on protection. So whenever you freeze boss for the first time, he goes into protection mode, and it's hard to freeze him second time, but we are able to do it pretty easily and constantly. At the same time, it will freeze primed for freeze targets, and mark have duration, but also if you freeze target under effect of this mark, you will get 30% of damage as cold damage for 10 seconds. That's why we're using prolonged duration, so mark stays for longer, buff stays for longer. At the same time, I'm using internal mark for one cool trick, and Mark of Siphoning. Mark of Siphoning is support gem that will completely fix your mana problems. Enemies marked by skill will give you leeched mana equal to 5% of attack damage they take from your hits. Enemies marked by support skill will give you life leech based on attack damage. And that's basically what most players will kinda get wrong. I saw suggestions to get leech of physical attack damage as mana on gloves, on rings, and it does not work. Since when we pop assault, when we pop all buffs, if we check our damage, our physical damage is 100, just 100. And yes, we will leech a little bit, but our cold damage right now is 1800, is 18,000, so basically we can't leech. But with this mark we can leech from 18,000 damage, but actually we will leech from our 100k DPS, yeah. So we will leech mana by doing this trick, and we will have no mana problems at all. And as I showed you, there's like loads of different stuff over here. Basically, if we freeze enemy with Lunar Assault while he is under effect of freezing mark, and at the same time Arctic Howl will trigger on surrounding enemies, we will get 3 buffs for our cold damage. It will look like this. We need to pop Arctic Howl, jump, and basically freeze. So I don't know if I got full buffs active, but right now we got like around 100k DPS on all our skills. And that's again with no kinda good rings that gives us damage. This one gives 0 damage, with pretty weak talismans that you can get, I guess, pretty cheaply. We can buff it even more. So let's check our DPS right now. I'm mostly interested in ice fragments, because that's where our DPS will go on bosses. When we are fully buffed, with my current setup, we can deal 10 attacks per second. We're not considering critical hits in this calculation, since I'm not scaling with critical hits, but average damage for our ice fragments is 25k. So it's 25. That's for one fragment, and we're creating 5 fragments every use. So every attack, 5 fragments for 125k damage total. But we're dealing 10 attacks per second, so it's 10 attacks. It's 1,250,000 DPS right now, only for ice fragments, without considering Lunar Assault, without considering Lunar Blessing, which also deals a lot of damage, and with pretty weak gear without any rings again. So freeze, pump, 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 and out. Basically that's it. If you look closely, you could saw one of the secret tricks I used. So there's another buff that we can use to enhance our damage, and it's just insane. This buff will give us Onslaught, which is 20% increased skill speed, also movement speed, pretty nice, and 28% more damage, plus 5% from quality. It's just insane damage buff, because it just blows our DPS through the roof. And I'm using insanely cool trick, because I'm using shared weapon sets, and I'm using Savage Fury only on set number 2. This gives me ability to use Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice, and Bark Skin on set number 1. I don't know if it's supposed to work like this, but it works. Maybe it's a bug. So, if you will try to follow this build, and you will find out that Savage Fury on set number 2 does not accumulate any damage and any skill power, then you just want to turn off Herald of Ash. Herald of Ash still will be useful for you if you're fighting Delirium. So Delirious monsters does not shatter. Against them we turn off Herald of Ice and turn on Herald of Ash. Against all other monsters we'll turn on Herald of Ice. That's it. Technically that's all the tricks you need to know to delete your enemies from existence, but how to survive. So that's not really tricky. For our gear I'm using basically mixed armor, mixed helmet, and preferably mixed gloves, but I rolled pretty nice strength gloves so we can use them also. And I'm using energy shield based boots. So energy shield based boots is used because we got iron sleepers, plus 3 to armor per 1 item energy shield on equipped boots. It's insane boost, and it will give you almost same amount of armor as any strength based boots, but also you will get a lot of energy shield on top. For this character, actually getting a lot of energy shield is not main idea to survive, since you can't actually sustain and regenerate it. Instead, we want to focus on life. We want to have as much life as possible, and we treat energy shield as just extra protective layer. As Wolf, you can basically do roll, which is kinda jump, you can use pounce, and you can use cross slash. All of the skills is movement abilities, technically. So when you're fighting really difficult enemies, all you want to do is to, for example, find out that you're in danger, you lose your energy shield. It will look like this, basically jump, pounce, cross slash, and you're out. So you're just 2 screens away. You disengage, maybe you regenerate energy shield a little bit, and then you come back. You're coming back by turning on Lunar Assault, and also you're popping this Arctic Howl ability. I haven't spoke about this a lot, but basically it will freeze enemies around you, it will help you freeze them, so we're using Echoing Cry, Raging Cry, so it generates rage, Ice Bite, so it gives us cold damage, and Deep Freeze, so it freezes enemies for longer. Echoing Cry is the main and most important stuff, because you can use this ability, you cry, and then you go in and it will pop few times, so it helps you kind of fight and at the same time freeze enemies without using the skill in a battle. Therefore again, we're looking for as much armor as possible on our pieces, but also energy shield is nice for just effective HP bonuses. Maximum life on your gear is just very important, but also there's like extra protective layers. So protective layers comes from Bark Skin mostly. It's support gem for druids. it reserves spirit, just 30 spirit, and whenever you take damage from your energy shield, you gain armor for a short duration. And total armor can't exceed total armor from your body armor. So technically you need body armor with a lot more armor than I am, but again I'm using like pretty base stuff that I rolled long ago, and we will do crafting session soon for perfect talisman and perfect body armor probably. We will go for 2 pieces. And there's a lot more protective layers on passive skill tree. There's armor applied to elemental damage, and there's armor applied to elemental damage while we shape shifted. Armor will be increased while we shape shifted, and there's like loads of stuff like this. Pretty like powerful stuff. Considering our wolf form, this skill also helps increase skill effect duration, prolongs our buffs, and basically there's like just a lot of damage immobilization build up over here. To improve your damage on gear, you're looking for level 2 all skills, but level 2 all skills will hurt a lot, especially if you're going for this early. Therefore, I'm not suggesting to go all in on level 2 all melee skills. I don't have it on my weapon, and on my weapon I got mana per enemy killed. That's actually pretty good stuff. It helps us sustain mana when we just mapping, and we want to have lightning damage on our weapon, on our rings or gloves, because if we got source of lightning damage, we will be able to shock enemies and deal more damage. Other than that, just try to completely cap your resistances. I'm still working on my chaos resistance, and try to get as much armor as possible. This will help us our survival a lot. Now, I haven't spoke about our ascendancy. It's of course shaman, and we started with elemental damage and ability to gain damage as extra damage of a random element. Pretty powerful, increases our power. Then I went into elemental resistances and got reactive growth. So it also contributes to our protective layers, because whenever you take damage, elemental damage, you will adapt to highest elemental damage taken, and you will take less damage from this type of element. Technically, how it works: if you're able to survive first hit, then you get protective layer from this type of hit. So in order to survive as shaman, you just need to kinda survive first hit against Zesht. You will get a protective layer from his damage, some of his skills is cold for example, and then probably you will be able to tank a lot more hits, because also you will have extra adaptation from finishing this branch. It's really like powerful stuff. And then we get increased defenses over here and gain benefits of bonded modifiers of runes and idols. Bonded modifiers is extremely powerful. That's another secret for our DPS and survival. So it basically gives any rune, and I'm using these powerful runes that gives me gain damage as extra chaos damage and 50% increased attack damage against rare or unique enemies. Coolest part, this stuff will give me also +1 level to all attack skills. So technically it gives me a lot of damage against rare and unique enemies, but also giving me damage against basic enemies with level 2 attack skills. Damage as extra chaos damage, while bonded give me damage as extra physical damage, which will be converted into cold damage, so it's really powerful stuff. And it works on every piece of gear, so basically for every basic rune on my armor, I'm getting more and more and more life. That's how it works. Eventually we will craft armor and amulet with increased maximum life, and we probably will hit around 3k maximum life, and that's where we will become basically unbeatable, but that's more of the super end game stuff. But there's one more really important protective layer that not a lot of people actually talking about, and that's one of my favorite. It's a belt. Yeah, my belt got maximum life, got some armor, but most important part is base type of this belt. I'm using utility belt, and that's what you want to use. So utility belt will make your flasks to apply recovery instantly. 20% of flasks will be applied instantly. Then you want to find flasks that also got the same tag. I got 29% of recovery applied instantly on this flask with 22% quality right now, it's corrupted. The second bonus is not really important, but you want to make sure you're not taking any mana from your mana flasks or anything weird. Increased charges, so you get more flasks, is nice. Ability to recharge them more often is also nice, basically it doesn't matter too much. And same goes for our mana flasks. They also getting recover applied instantly. So how it works? Well, whenever I get hit, I can instantly start spamming my flasks. And instead of waiting for like 1 minute for them to recover, they will apply 50% of recovery instantly. 50% is almost 600 health. And it's 1/3 of my life. So whenever I get hit, I can just spam button of my flasks and we will be golden. That's how it works. No mana, just pop bottle and we got mana again. Back up, mana, crying, freezing mark, and then we can leech our mana. So that's how it works. Now that you know everything that's going on, let me just run the map and explain what's going on. So, I'm just running around and hitting enemies, and I'm waiting for my rage to come up, and then I'm activating the buff and basically running forward with the buff that will last for 20 seconds. If I see unique enemy, I pop second buff that gives me extra damage, and that's basically how unique enemies can be destroyed with just basic attacks. And we are running and gunning and slamming and slashing, and just watching on our buff. When it turns off, basically when wolf becomes gray again, we turn it off, turn it on again, and just run forward. I'm mostly leaping and rolling forward. When enemy is frozen, I'm attacking with the shred, and that's basically it. When we are arriving to the boss, we turning on all the buffs, applying mark, freezing him, doing few shreds, and boom. Few shreds and boom is basically like this. You attacking with shred, every attack, every single attack, and here we're doing like 10 attacks per second or something like this, creates ice fragments, and I created like 50 ice fragments in a matter of 1 second, and then I used cross slash, and all these fragments pulled towards the boss, and he was deleted in one single strike. So that's the mechanics of the build. I hope you enjoyed it, and you will have blast trying it for yourself. And if you want to have nice gear for this type of build, make sure to follow, because soon I will upload my crafting guide.